A successful banker's brush with death completely transformed his life after a divine encounter that made him question everything he believed. What he experienced in those moments between life and death would alter his destiny forever. Living in my brownstone apartment in downtown Boston, I had everything figured out. At 47, I was Zachary Whitmore, senior investment banker at Morgan Stanley, with a corner office overlooking the harbor. My partner Marcus and I had been together for 8 years, hosting legendary dinner parties and taking exotic vacations. Our latest renovation project was turning the third floor into a home theater. That morning started like any other. I was rushing to catch the T to work, weaving through the morning crowd with my usual grande Americano in hand. The cherry blossoms were blooming along Commonwealth Avenue, and I remember thinking how beautiful they looked against the spring sky. I'd been feeling off lately, occasional chest pains, shortness of breath. My doctor warned me about high blood pressure, but I brushed it off as stress from our latest merger deal. Marcus kept nagging me to slow down, to take better care of myself, but I was too busy chasing the next promotion, the next big account. My mother, a devout Orthodox Christian, had been praying for my salvation. Ever since I came out in college, we maintained a strained relationship, exchanging polite phone calls on holidays. She would mail me religious books that I never opened, leaving them to collect dust in my desk drawer. The merger was consuming all my time. We were acquiring a tech startup in Silicon Valley, and the negotiations were intense. That morning, I had 3 conference calls back-to-back before noon. My assistant, Claire, kept bringing me coffee and anxiety medication. The pressure was building, but I thrived on it. During lunch, Marcus called. We argued about missing our planned weekend getaway to Provincetown. Again. Work comes first, I snapped, immediately regretting my words. But before I could apologize, another call came in. I'll make it up to you, I promised, hanging up. By late afternoon, the chest pain was getting worse. I loosened my tie, popped another pill. The office felt too warm, despite the AC running full blast. My Apple Watch showed my heart rate at 120, unusually high even for my stressed state. Claire noticed my pale complexion and suggested calling a doctor. I waved her off. The final call of the day was with Tokyo. As I stood to grab my presentation materials, the room started spinning. The skyline outside my window blurred into a smear of colors. My left arm felt heavy, numb. The pain in my chest exploded like a bomb. I heard Claire scream as I collapsed. My designer suit crumpled against the cold marble floor. Papers scattered everywhere. The last thing I remember was the ceiling tiles swimming above me and thinking about how I'd missed lunch with my sister last Sunday. But this wasn't just a heart attack. What happened next would change everything I believed about life, death, and eternity. The medical report later showed that my heart had stopped for 7 minutes and 43 seconds. The doctors called it a widowmaker heart attack, a complete blockage of the left anterior descending artery. They said I was clinically dead, but I was more alive in those 7 minutes than I'd ever been in my 47 years on Earth. As my body lay there on the office floor, my consciousness embarked on a journey that would shatter my understanding of reality. The first sensation was floating. My awareness expanded beyond my body, and I watched from above as paramedics performed CPR. Claire was crying, holding my hand. The scene felt distant, like watching a movie about someone else's life. A strange peace washed over me. All the stress, the deadlines, the endless meetings, they seemed so trivial now. I could see through the building's floors, watching people going about their day, completely unaware that someone was dying 14 stories above them. Then came the tunnel. Not the cliché bright light at the end of a dark passage, but more like being pulled through layers of reality. Colors I'd never seen before swirled around me. The closest I can describe it is like diving into an ocean of living light, but even that doesn't capture its true nature. Time stopped making sense. I felt like I was experiencing everything at once, past, present, and future merged into a single moment. My whole life played before me, but not like a movie. I was reliving every moment simultaneously, feeling every joy and pain I'd ever caused others. I saw myself through others' eyes. The pain in my mother's face when I mockingly dismissed her faith. The hurt in Marcus's eyes every time I chose work over him. The colleagues I'd stepped on climbing the corporate ladder. But I also saw the times I'd shown kindness, helping a homeless man during a snowstorm, defending a junior associate from workplace bullying. Then he appeared, not in a physical form at first, but as a presence so overwhelming that it defied description. Pure love radiated from this being, but it wasn't the soft, fluffy kind of love we talk about on earth. This was a love that burned like fire, that saw through every layer of pretense I'd built around myself. I knew instantly it was Jesus, though he looked nothing like the paintings. His presence was both terrifying and fascinating. Kingdom power flowed from him like waves, yet his eyes held such tenderness that I wanted to weep. All my arguments against faith, all my intellectual objections to religion, melted away in his presence. He showed me things, countless souls streaming toward different destinies. I saw people I knew who had died. Some were heading toward indescribable glory, while others, the darkness that awaited them was worse than any nightmare. I recognized faces, friends from the gay community who had passed away, now trapped in that terrible darkness. These are the consequences of free will, he explained, though he didn't speak in words. Each soul chooses its path. I understood then that it wasn't about punishment, but about alignment with ultimate reality. Just as a plant can't grow properly away from sunlight, souls can't thrive when they choose to separate themselves from their creator. He showed me my own life path, how each decision had led me further from my true purpose. My sexuality wasn't who I was, but rather a result of wounds and choices. I saw myself as a child, the subtle influences that had shaped my identity, the ways I'd gradually built walls against truth. Then came the most profound part of the experience. Jesus took me through what felt like different dimensions of reality. I saw the spiritual realm that exists alongside our physical world. Angels and demons were as real as buildings and trees, constantly influencing human choices through thoughts and suggestions. What you call love on earth is often just a shadow, he communicated. True love is aligned with eternal truth. I understood then that my relationship with Marcus, though it felt like love, was actually keeping both of us from experiencing God's perfect design. He showed me marriages as they were meant to be, the sacred union between man and woman, reflecting a deeper spiritual reality. I saw how the enemy had twisted this design, leading many, including myself, down paths that seemed right but led to spiritual death. The most shocking revelation was seeing how my lifestyle had affected others. Young people who looked up to me as a successful gay professional, whom I'd inadvertently encouraged to embrace a lifestyle that would separate them from God. The ripple effects of my choices extended far beyond my own life. But this wasn't about condemnation. Every revelation came wrapped in that overwhelming love. I felt accepted and valued beyond anything I'd ever experienced in human relationships. This was the love I'd been searching for in all the wrong places. I was shown ancient civilizations that had embraced similar lifestyles and their ultimate fate. Sodom and Gomorrah weren't just Bible stories. I witnessed their destruction as if I were there, understanding God's grief over having to judge what had become utterly corrupted. Time is short, I understood him saying. Many are being deceived. I saw how modern culture was rapidly embracing ideas that were leading millions away from truth. The rainbow, originally God's covenant sign, had been co-opted as a symbol of pride, the very sin that had caused Lucifer's fall. The most difficult part was seeing Muhammad's deception and its impact across centuries. I watched as millions followed his false teachings, unknowingly separating themselves from the true path to salvation. The pain this caused in Jesus' heart was palpable. Then everything shifted. I found myself in what seemed like a great courtroom. Beings of light, angels, I realized, stood in attendance. My entire life was laid bare, every thought and action exposed. Nothing could be hidden here. I saw my name in what they called the Book of Life, but it was growing dim. Choices I'd made were literally erasing it. The angels' expressions showed deep concern. I understood that I was at a crucial decision point. My eternal destiny hung in the balance. Jesus showed me two possible futures. In one, I continued my current path. I saw myself growing older with Marcus, achieving more success, being celebrated by the world. But beneath the surface happiness lay a growing spiritual darkness. The end of that path was unbearable to witness, an eternity separated from God's presence. The other future was radically different. I saw myself walking away from my old life, facing rejection and misunderstanding, but filled with a peace that transcended human understanding. I saw people being drawn to Christ through my testimony, lives being transformed. The choice is yours, Jesus conveyed, but know that your decision affects more than just yourself. He showed me souls who would either find or miss their way to truth based on my choice. The weight of this moment was overwhelming. Everything I'd built my identity around was being challenged. My successful career, my relationship, my entire worldview, all of it seemed so small compared to the eternal reality I was now seeing. There was an incredible paradox in this moment. I had more free will than ever, yet I felt completely compelled by love. The presence of Jesus was so beautiful, so perfect, that choosing anything else seemed insane. This wasn't about rules or religion, it was about reality itself. I understood then why my mother had never stopped praying. She had glimpsed something of this reality, however dimly, and had been trying to share it with me all along. Her love, which I had dismissed as religious fanaticism, was actually a reflection of this greater divine love. Standing in that courtroom of light, I saw how many prayers had been offered for me. Not just my mother's, but countless others, some from people I'd never met. Each prayer appeared as a shimmering thread of light, forming a beautiful tapestry of intercession. The depth of spiritual warfare over my soul became clear. Demons had strategically worked to keep me blind to truth, using pride, success, and false love as chains. But angels had been fighting for me too, protecting me from countless dangers I'd never known about. Jesus showed me specific moments when I'd nearly found truth, but turned away. Times in college when Christian friends had shared their faith. That church service I'd attended out of courtesy at my niece's baptism. Even that religious book gathering dust in my drawer. Each had been a divine appointment I'd missed. But the most profound revelation came when he showed me my true identity, who I was created to be. The person I saw was so different from who I'd become. This version of me was walking in complete freedom, unbound by the false identity I'd constructed. This is why the enemy fought so hard to distract you, Jesus explained. He feared who you would become in me. I saw how my influence in the financial world could have been used to advance God's kingdom instead of just building my own empire. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. Angels leaned forward expectantly. I sensed that my time of decision was approaching its end. The weight of eternity pressed in around me. Just then, Jesus showed me one final vision, my funeral. In one version, it was filled with worldly accolades but spiritual emptiness. In the other, it was a celebration of a life transformed, with souls present who had found Christ through my testimony. As I made my choice, accepting this new reality, something extraordinary happened. The love that had seemed external suddenly flooded through my entire being. It was like being immersed in liquid light, every cell of my spiritual body infused with divine energy. Jesus placed what felt like a seal upon my heart. "You are mine now," he communicated. "The enemy has no more claim on you." I watched as chains I hadn't even known I was wearing fell away. But then came the hard part. Jesus showed me what returning would mean. I saw the painful conversations ahead, with Marcus, with my friends, with my colleagues. I saw the criticism and rejection I would face. Some would call me a traitor to the LGBTQ community. Others would question my sanity. "My grace will be sufficient," he assured me. "What you lose on earth, you gain 100-fold in eternity." He showed me the community of believers who would become my new family, supporting me through the transition ahead. The journey back felt like traveling through dimensions. The colors began to fade, the heavenly courtroom dissolved. I could feel myself being pulled back toward my body, which now seemed like a heavy, confining garment. I heard voices calling me back, doctors and nurses working frantically to revive me. With each shock from the defibrillator, the connection to the spiritual realm grew dimmer. Part of me wanted to resist, to stay in that glorious presence. The last thing I remember before returning fully was Jesus' voice. "Remember everything you've seen. Your testimony will help set others free." Then, with a jolt like electricity through my entire being, I was back. My physical eyes opened to bright hospital lights and concerned faces. The pain in my chest was intense, but nothing compared to the ache of separation from that divine presence. I tried to speak but couldn't due to the breathing tube. The doctors later told me it was a miracle I survived. The type of heart attack I had is often fatal, but I knew it was more than just medical luck. I had been sent back with a purpose. That was 3 years ago. The changes since then haven't been easy, but they've been worth every sacrifice. Breaking the news to Marcus was one of the hardest conversations of my life. He thought at first that the lack of oxygen to my brain had caused delusions. Others suggested PTSD or drug reactions from the hospital. I left my position at Morgan Stanley, much to everyone's shock. My massive salary and corner office no longer held any appeal. Instead, I started a nonprofit organization helping people find freedom from sexual brokenness through Christ's love. My mother cried for hours when I told her everything. "I've waited 25 years for this," she said, holding me tight. "The relationship we have now is beyond anything I could have imagined." She's become my strongest supporter. The LGBTQ community's reaction was predictably harsh. Former friends accused me of internalized homophobia or being brainwashed. Op-eds were written condemning my betrayal. Death threats arrived in my inbox. But for every person who walked away, God brought new, genuine friendships into my life. My transformation attracted media attention. Some outlets tried to discredit my story or paint me as a victim of conversion therapy. But others, especially smaller Christian networks, gave me platforms to share what I'd seen. Each time I tell my story, people come forward wanting to know more. The most amazing part has been watching others find freedom. Men and women who struggled like I did, discovering their true identity in Christ. Some had near-death experiences of their own that confirmed what I'd seen. The community of transformed believers grows larger every month. Today, I live in a modest apartment near my childhood church. My calendar is filled with speaking engagements, counseling sessions, and ministry opportunities instead of corporate meetings. My bank account is smaller, but my joy is immeasurably greater. Sometimes late at night, I can still feel echoes of that divine presence I encountered. It reminds me that everything here is temporary. What matters is eternity. My only regret is that I had to literally die to discover this truth. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell to stay updated on more incredible testimonies of lives transformed by God's love. Share this video to help others find the truth that sets them free.